Great to see you all virtually. Feels like it's been a long time. But I am really happy to be able to share the results of our 2020 alumni survey. So I hope all of you took the survey and were aware that we held a survey from about mid-September to mid to late October. And I think we got a lot of really great insights. We're working with a company called the Performance Enhancement Group. They are an industry leading survey company for higher education and have had a focus on alumni programming since about 2001. They work with hundreds, literally hundreds of universities. Many of our peer schools have been clients of PEG. So they really have provided us with some great perspective and really elevated our survey from in the past. And I hope you enjoy the results today. Feel free to type in your questions in the chat box. Angela, you're welcome to interrupt me if there's a question that would be best answered in the moment, or we can do Q&A at the end. There are a lot of slides with a lot of data. There's a lot of graphs. There's a lot of very, very small numbers. And my advice would be to really look at the big picture and to not get too focused on individual data points, but think about holistically, what is this survey? What is the story that this survey is telling us? And what is it that we are hearing from our alumni? I think it's pretty loud and clear as we get through the PowerPoint. What are we hearing that our alumni want in terms of programming and how they want to engage with us now and in the future? So you can see we sent the survey out to all alumni and had over 2.5% response rate, which is actually really good. Our goal was around 2%, so we did exceed that. We had just under 5,000 individual responses. It was not an anonymous survey, so we do know a lot of great data about the individuals who responded to our survey, which you will see in the forthcoming analysis. So the survey that we did was considered a pulse survey, really specifically around their engagement interests with the university. However, we did ask a few general questions that we will ask year over year to be able to benchmark our success from year over year. And these are a couple of those questions. So how would you rate your decision to attend the University of Maryland? Really happy that most of our alumni felt it was either a good or great decision. You can see the comparison with all schools are those other clients I mentioned of PEG, the Performance Enhancement Group. So you can see we're pretty on par with a lot of the other schools that they are working with, many of our peers. How would you describe your experience as a student? I think that this is a great story to tell. Most of our alumni rated it as excellent, and we actually outperformed many of our peers in the other schools that have taken this similar survey with the Performance Enhancement Group. Now, this is an area where I think it shows some opportunity for us to really activate our alumni network as advocates on behalf of the university. We found in this question, how often do you promote the University of Maryland to others? Most of our alumni do it only occasionally, with some alumni doing it regularly or all the time. We obviously want to bump that up. You can see we are below the average of the other schools that have taken this same or similar survey. So when you think about programs like UMD Champions, the advocacy program, and others, that's an area where I think we have an opportunity for growth in relative to how some other schools are performing. So which of the following describes your overall current opinion of the University of Maryland? So this is the university generally. Most of our alumni had a good or excellent opinion, which is great. And I think a lot of this stems back to their experience as a student, of course, and what factors were going on in the world and in their lives while they were a student. So I think that this is great data to share. And then more specifically, how do you rate your experience as an alumnus or an alumna? Now, this is, I think, an area that we would like to track year over year and show growth here, that more alumni are rating their experience as an alum as excellent. So this is something that we're going to really keep track of year over year. I think we have some growth here and some opportunity to really improve here. to have more of our alumni say that this is an excellent experience as an alumnus. So a question here about promoting the Alumni Association. So previously we asked, how often do you promote the Alumni Association? So that might be for admissions, or excuse me, how often do you promote the university generally? That might be for admissions, that might be for career services, and that might be for, in hiring our students. And that just is kind of a general question. This is specific to the Alumni Association. How often are you promoting our organization to your other alumni? And this is clear that most alumni are not promoting us to their other alumni. So we can talk more about this, I think, later on. I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that we really need to show alumni that value of why they should care and why they should be promoting us, and how they can, how other alumni could benefit by engaging with our programs. And then how do they view the Alumni Association? This is somewhat different from how they view the university overall. Predominantly, you can see by far it's a good opinion. Again, this is one of those areas we will track year over year and hope to have more alumni rate us and the current opinion of the Alumni Association as excellent. But at least the poor was really low. So that's good news. And how connected do you feel with the Alumni Association? Not a surprise here that the majority of responses are kind of right here. Oops. A majority of our responses are kind of right here in this middle zone. 26% are in this, that they have a very high opinion of us, which is great. Again, this is going to be one of those things we compare year over year. We want to have more of those 7, 8, 9, 10s. So this is our our baseline, our benchmark for where we are going to be looking in the following years as to how we perform with their connectedness to the Alumni Association. Now, this is the good stuff. This is how alumni would like to engage with the Alumni Association, and really how important is it for us to provide different opportunities for programs and engagement opportunities. So this was a set list that we created in conjunction with the survey company, in conjunction with PEG. And these were all the different programs that we offer, or not quite all, but pretty comprehensive list. And we asked alumni to rate the performance. So how well are we doing this, in addition to how important is this? So you can see those were two different questions. How important is this, and how well are we doing? So you can see here in the red bars, that's how important something is. And the blue bar is how well we are performing. You can see they don't always line up, and we'll get to that in just a moment. The way that we ordered this slide was in descending order based off of importance. So the things at the top of this list are considered the most important, down to what is considered the least important by our alumni. So you can see here a lot of these things at the top of the list, and this is for all alumni at the University of Maryland. This is not comparing to other universities. So this is just the University of Maryland alumni. All of the things here at the top of the list, or many of them, are related to careers, helping alumni find jobs, provide industry-based networking opportunities, help alumni gain new skills to advance their careers, provide regional networks. That scored very high as something that would be important for the Alumni Association to do. And then you can see here going down, and we're going to really focus on, I'd say, the top 8 or so of these factors as we move forward in this presentation. But you can see here the full list. Some of the things that are less important: offer exclusive trips and travel opportunities for alumni. That was rated as less important. And in fact, we're outperforming the performance, or excuse me, outperforming the importance. We're doing really well. Our performance is rated, we're doing pretty good, but the importance is not as important. It's only somewhat important. So that's how you can read this. Also, help alumni purchase exclusive TERP merchandise. That's not that important. There's a lot of ways that they can get exclusive TERP merchandise. This is kind of some of my assumption, that they can go to a sporting goods store or the bookstore or anywhere on the internet and find Maryland TERP gear. So it's not that important to alumni that we're providing this merchandise. And in fact, we're doing a better job than maybe we even need to be doing. Same thing, opportunities to support Maryland athletics. According to the alumni who filled out this survey, that's only somewhat important. And in fact, we are exceeding our performance in that area based on what they're describing as the importance. So we're going to dive deeper into this in just a moment. But are there any questions, Angela, on how to read this chart?
I do have a few questions, not exactly about this chart, but did we find out the breakdown by year of graduation, male, female?
We did not have the gender information as part of the analysis of this survey. We also did not analyze it based off of race or ethnicity, but we did analyze it based off of generational cohort, which you will see in just a moment. So we did, it's not by grad year, because obviously grad students will be of a different age than undergraduate students, right? So we did it based off of generational cohorts, so age, which we'll see in just a moment.
Okay, and to that point, is there a breakdown between people that filled out the survey as an undergrad, or they only got their post, like their master's or doctorate degree?
Great question. And we did not analyze based off of degree type. So I can tell you that about 75% of the survey respondents were undergraduate only. I think that there was another 15 to 20% that were graduate only, and then 5% or so that were both undergrad and graduate degree.
Okay, and then last question for now. Any information on location as far as where the person lives?
We do have regional based location information. We did not analyze the survey based on that data. One thing, and I will kind of get to this towards the end a little bit, but we did analyze the results based on numerous segments. So we looked at generational cohorts. We looked at current engagement level with the university. We looked at school or college degree. So, you know, Smith versus Clark versus BSOS, et cetera. And the stability of the responses was remarkable. There was very minor changes when we looked at all these different, even when we looked at age, the differences in the responses were quite minimal, which was actually quite remarkable in my mind, because I had made assumptions about the way people would respond to this, and it was really amazingly consistent across different demographics, different segments, different age groups, et cetera. So I believe that these responses would be applicable and would maintain consistency across geographic regions, gender, et cetera. There might be some very minor changes, but again, going back to my comment at the beginning, I encourage everyone to think about this holistically as what does this survey, what is the story telling us about our alumni generally? And I think that that can apply to all of those different groups and all of your constituents. That's
it for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's kind of how to read this. And we're going to dive deeper here in just a minute. So this is, again, kind of showing how that importance, this is considered an importance performance analysis. And anything on the left side of this middle line, the importance is exceeding performance. Anything on the right side, it's the opposite. Our performance is exceeding the importance. So maybe thinking about this, the way the survey company would describe this, anything where there is on the left side here, a really long bar, that would imply there's a lot of energy for more content in that area. So it's saying like, this is really important to me and you're not doing enough. Anything on this right side, if the bar, they're saying it's not really that important to me and you're doing a good job. So obviously some of these things, like we're going to continue to ask people to donate. We're not going to do less of that just because it's less important. I mean, that's, you know, that's a reality, right? But things here on this left side where they're saying, this is really important to me and I want you to do more of it. This is, I think, where we really can focus in on some of our programmatic decisions in the future. So again, this is in descending order based off of the level of importance. Now, what you'll notice is that these lines are not in descending order, because this means that the gap between importance and performance is not always aligned, right? So we are doing a better job with our regional networks in terms of meeting expectations there in terms of how important it is and our performance. So because if it's exactly in the middle, that means that it is as important as we are performing. So the fact that this is a little lower than here, help alumni find jobs, they're saying that this is really, really important to me and I want you to do more of it. So you can see here some of the biggest lines here. They're all, most of them are related to career and professional networking, job support, and then also here, elevating underrepresented communities. So this is something alumni are saying, it's really important to me. You're not doing enough of it yet. I want you to do more of this. So this is just breaking down, taking out some of those lower performing items. So this is just kind of a little bit of a better graph to see some of that same information that we just talked about. So you can see here the top 3 and the next 3. These are the areas that the survey company identified for us where there is the greatest gap between importance and performance, meaning that this is the area where there's a lot of energy and we probably have the greatest opportunity to increase programming, increase resources, increasing our focus, and really boosting and enhancing our programs in these areas to really meet the needs of our alumni. So these are the 6 things that the company is identifying and our alumni are saying that more of. Now, this slide here, this is about which of the following engagement activities would you likely engage in? So this is asking about more specific, not just kind of conceptual things, but specifically, what would you actually do? If the Alumni Association provided it, what would you be excited to participate in? And this tells an interesting story here. The number 1 item here is read news about what's happening on campus and in College Park. The number 2 item is read stories about notable and successful alumni. So with, over 50% of alumni would like to hear news about campus. So I think that that's pretty interesting when you're thinking about your social media strategy for your individual network, something at the Alumni Association. And, for any of you connected to me personally on LinkedIn, I like to share a lot of posts and updates. And I like to say that for every, 1 event invitation that I post onto my social media, I try to post 4 or 5 news articles and stories and resources about what's going on campus. And we see here that is really important for our alumni. Also, you can see here, so these are kind of the top 5 groups. Also here, regional networks, again, scored very well, that this is something alumni would be very likely to participate in. Virtual events, we know a lot of alumni are going to participate in that. Industry-based networking, programs to boost career skills, and job posting or job board. So it's a very similar story here between what alumni find important and what they say they'd be willing and interested to participate in. Oops. So this is just kind of another graph here of after the COVID-19 pandemic. There really isn't much of a story here because the same stuff keeps bubbling up. So jobs, networking, providing business support, industry-based networking. So you can see this top group really has not changed as we continue to move through the survey. So this is just that same list, but this is taking out the bottom responses and asking, just showing really what are the most important things here that we provide. You can see it's a remarkably consistent group as we continue through this survey. So this is an interesting slide. What is your level of readiness to attend a Alumni Association event in person? 2/3 of our alumni were not ready to attend an event at this time. About 1/3 said they prefer only to attend virtual events, and a little less than 1/3 said they are not ready to attend until an in-person event until there's a vaccine. So you can see here, if you add up these numbers, it's about 1/3 saying that they would be willing to do an outdoor event with social distancing measures in place. Keep in mind that this survey was done at the end of September through the early part of October. So I'm not sure that, with COVID being such a rapidly evolving situation, I don't know if that this same responses could be applied to today's situation. But I think that this did, confirm for myself and for Amy and for Angela and others that we really do need to be continuing with our virtual alumni engagements and continue to postpone gathering in person until it is more safe to do so. So you can just see here some of the key findings. I've pretty much already talked about this all verbally, that, areas where we have high energy are to help alumni find jobs, provide industry-based networking, provide opportunities to support alumni-owned businesses, help alumni gain new skills, advance their career. So all career-related things, in addition to elevating up underrepresented communities and providing outlets to mentor and advise current students. So alumni are most likely to engage in these career-related programs, regional alumni networks, and then stories about College Park and other alumni. So I think that those are all general findings based on the entire population. So I mentioned that here we go. So I mentioned that we did some analysis based off of ERA, which is generational cohort. You can see here the different generations. So the baby boomers fall roughly into this category, Generation X roughly into this category, and millennials roughly into this category. All that's labeled on these slides. So you can see here, this is based off of the responses, the different generational cohorts. We did really well with recent grads. A lot of our responses here, a significant percentage were recent grads, but we had enough responses from each generation to be able to have some statistical significance in the responses. And when we looked at alumni affinity, which generation felt the most connected to the university, the Alumni Association, those who graduated in the 80s, anybody graduated from the 80s, do a little icon, get a little clap, a little thumbs up for me. Our grads from the 80s and early 90s feel very connected to the Alumni Association. And this is where we've got the work to do, right? Those recent grads, they feel the least connected to us. Not a surprise. They've had the shortest tenure as an alum, so the least amount of time to build a relationship with us. So this is going back to that importance performance analysis, and you can see a remarkably similar story, right? It's same here items about what are we getting the highest gaps here. They're really the same items that we had in the previous slide for the overall group. Perhaps some differences here with some of the younger alumni. They really, really, really have energy on jobs. They really want these career-based and industry-based programs. Older alumni, they have a little bit more energy on an alumni directory. That's more important to them perhaps than some of the other generations. But you can see here, a very similar story to what we saw when we looked at the overall group. And then what types of activities would you likely engage in? Again, a very similar story. If you look this bar here on the far right side, this is the young alumni. You can see they have a lot of energy about jobs, career skills, industry networking. Whereas older alumni, the red and the yellow bars, they're really excited to hear about news in College Park and this alumni directory and other kind of alumni stories and things like that. But you can see, it's the same 10 items as we had in the overall group. If you look at the top 10 items, they're the same as we saw with the overall group. And then this is post-COVID. What would be important for us to do post-COVID? A really similar story is playing out here. Younger alumni, jobs, career networking, new skills. And you can see, really recruiting students, I think that this is interesting. If you look at the kind of 80s and 90s graduates, they're really interested in recruiting students, which may be because they have children of their own who are looking at admissions, perhaps considering Maryland. So maybe that's why they had a slightly higher response for this category. But you can see it really does follow a very similar trend line with what is out, what are these top 8 or 10 responses? They're pretty much the same across the board. Older alumni, again, though, this news about what's happening on campus continues to perform well with the older alumni group, in addition to mentoring. But what we thought was interesting, older alumni, they still want to help alumni find jobs. They still want, and they think we should provide industry-based networking. So, presumably those alumni may not be looking for a job themselves, but they still think it's important that we are doing that and that we are doing that for other Terps and other alumni. So what is your readiness to attend events in person? A very similar story. Again, majority of alumni not ready to attend events. Older alumni are more likely to be unsure, perhaps because the situation is evolving so rapidly, and older alumni are disproportionately affected by the COVID-19 pandemic due to the health issues. So but you can see here, there is a vast majority of alumni are not ready to attend or only want to attend virtual alumni events now and in the future. So again, this is some of the stuff I kind of just shared verbally about all alumni have a strong interest in finding jobs, career-based networking, but it is much stronger with younger alumni. And for older alumni, they're much more interested in hearing about news and what's happening in College Park and around campus. So for membership status, we had a lot of never members. So the way we define a past member is somebody who used to have a membership, but they did not renew. And a never member, they've never purchased a membership from us. So a majority of our responses were from never members. Not surprising, our members had a higher affinity for the Alumni Association. I don't think anybody's surprised by that. And you can see here, our never members, they're following a very similar trend line that we have seen here, where they have a lot of energy around helping find jobs, industry-based networking, career skills, as well as supporting alumni-owned businesses and elevating underrepresented communities. So you can see there's a very similar story here across different demographics. Again, the top 10, what would you like us to provide? What types of engagement opportunities would you be likely to engage in? You can see here, annual and life members, they're more interested in reading news about what's happening on campus and news from other alumni. But it's basically the same top 10 items here. So I would say our members are more interested in member benefits, which is not a surprise. Members are more interested in ways to donate to the university. Thank you for members. And also members are more interested to support athletics. But if you look at non-members, again, that same story keeps coming up: jobs, career, industry networking, and then some of these things about news and articles. So just another graphical way of showing that information. You can see it's a really similar trend line, just with some of those same trends showing in this graph as well. Here's an interesting point. What is your level of readiness to attend a Alumni Association event in person? Never members and past members are much more likely to say that they prefer to only attend virtual events. So I took a lot of note of that, because if we're looking to acquire new members, a key strategy in the future, I believe that this data is showing, a key strategy in the future will be to continue virtual programming. So just some key findings here, pretty much the stuff that we just shared verbally. I want to make sure I'm leaving enough time at the end, so I'm going to start moving a little faster here. So engagement score. We have a software that provides, they call it a PDI score. It's basically an engagement score. And we bucketed those scores into 5 categories: no engagement all the way up to the highest engagement. I'm sure many of you as our volunteer leaders would be considered among our highest engaged alumni. So you can see, I was shocked at the number of alumni who have no engagement and took our survey. I don't know if anybody else finds that like really surprising. And I think it's great because, you know, it shows that there's potential to engage these people. Just because we haven't done it yet doesn't mean we can't do it in the future. So I really, I think that this is some great data to really hone in on. Oh, so first here, not a surprise, our highest engaged alumni, it's almost like a perfect line here, with the highest engaged alumni feeling the most affinity to the Alumni Association. I mean, I don't think anybody would be surprised by that. Now, this is where I think it really gets interesting. For alumni with no engagement, look at all the energy around helping alumni find jobs. Again, it's like the same story. And I'm sorry, I feel like I'm starting to be a broken record player here, but that was kind of my point in the beginning, is that we have segmented, spliced, and diced the data in a lot of different ways. And the story is remarkably consistent across these different segments. The energy is around helping alumni find jobs, industry-based networking, helping alumni gain new skills, providing support to alumni-owned businesses, elevating underrepresented communities. I mean, those are the top 5 across practically every demographic. I mean, it really is incredibly consistent. You can see our little bit more energy here around our high engaged. You know, they feel like they're probably better connected. Maybe they need less of that information, but people who have no engagement, they still want to hear stories of College Park and campus and other alumni. So I think that that's an interesting thing to note. Again, that consistency of what are the top 5 things that alumni would be likely to engage in. It's those same 10 items that on average perform the best. You can see highest engaged alumni, they are more likely, just like our members, they are more likely to donate to the university. They're more likely to support Maryland athletics, and they're more likely to want benefits for dues paying membership. So, you know, again, there's the correlation between the engagement and the membership. You know, if you're a member, you're likely going to be highly engaged as well. So we can see consistency with these 3 things that are kind of the outliers of these top 10. But if you look again at those no engagement or the low engagement, this is where the energy is really around the career related stuff, and then bubbling up again here, news about what's happening in College Park and on campus. Again, just a graph kind of showing a similar trend line here, you know, where what's very important down to what's less important. So, and you can really see here, the purple line is the highest, the red line is the no engagement alumni. You can see that energy with the people who are not currently engaged. Everything rated above very important here is around career skills, networking, professional development, etc. Another interesting story here to tell, very similar to people who are never members, our alumni with no engagement, a majority, or it's not a majority, but a plurality say, I prefer to only engage through virtual events. So definitely, you know, from the Alumni Association's perspective, I'm looking at this, I'm saying, you know, we got to keep going with this virtual programming. After COVID, we're not going to go back to everything in person. There is a real significant need for us to do virtual alumni engagement, continue virtual alumni engagement. So just some of the key findings, I basically shared these all verbally. So I want to try and wrap up here so we can have some time for some discussion. So we will, you know, feedback. This is from the consulting company. We are going to let all of our alumni to know that their opinion is important. We're going to share out the results of the survey widely. You will see that beginning in February. We are going to share some of the kind of highlights of the survey. You can see energy level for young alumni, past or never members, and less engaged alumni, which, by the way, those three groups are correlated, right? You can see that it's a lot around industry, professional networking, and career skills. So the consulting company has advised us that even if alumni do not attend these events, they do not participate in these events, they still want to know that these things are happening. It's still important that to them to know, and for them to have goodwill towards the Alumni Association and therefore goodwill towards the university, for them to know that we are providing the support and that we are continuing to help alumni in these ways and that we are doing this work. So, oh yeah, I'm not quite done yet. Sorry, I've got one more group here is based off of school or college. And then we'll get to be able to have some discussion and questions. We had the most number of responses from BSOS. Yay, go BSOS. And you can see pretty much statistical significance from everything from journalism up. If there were fewer than 100 responses, the survey company did not feel that there were enough responses to have a significant, statistically significant response rate. So just kind of keep that in mind. So you can see here, what school or college has the highest affinity towards the Alumni Association? Can I get woohoo for the School of Business? Go Smith, highest affinity at least for the Alumni Association. Got a little work to do with ag. So, we'll talk about how we can create more affinity from our ag alumni, but you can see, pretty consistent here, primarily between 4s and 5s on average for these different schools. And this is that, again, going back to that importance performance analysis, this is just BSOS here. So you can see the trend lines, and I'm just going to add in each of the different schools here one by one. And I can share this slide deck out afterwards so you can look at the chart. It is remarkably, I mean, I keep saying that. I'm a broken record player. It is so consistent about where we are finding the energy and where those top, where alumni are saying, this is what I really want to hear. And this is really important to me. And you all could do more in this area. And I would really like that. Journalism alumni, they're more focused maybe on this alumni directory, which I think is interesting. Public health alumni, they're more interested than other groups on elevating underrepresented communities. And then you look at arts and humanities, they're most interested in helping alumni find jobs. Least interested is education, maybe because, for teachers, the way they find jobs is a little bit different than in other career paths. So, but you can see here, by and large, all of the schools and colleges, it's the same top 3 and then the same next 3, right? So public health also, and what is this? This is journalism. A lot of interest in supporting alumni-owned businesses. Engineering here, there's a lot of interest in finding jobs, industry-based networking. So, but again, it's pretty much the same same story we saw of what are the most important things overall. They continue to show up as we segment this data. Pretty similar again. This is kind of a slide that we just talked about. Regional alumni events, journalism had a couple of outliers here. I don't know if we have anybody on journalism here on the call today, but I think that that's really interesting. Community service is really disproportionately, I'd say, important for public health. That's the public health bar right there. Engineering is popping with industry-based networking. So, besides journalism, engineering here is highest with the industry-based networking. Having previously worked there, I know, there's about 8 or 9 different majors within engineering, and, maybe that's kind of coming out here. You can't lump all engineers together. So maybe that's part of what that is about. But, again, really similar grouping here of what's important. And then another slide here just about, I mean, the same story to tell. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Level of readiness to attend an in-person event. Public health, maybe not a surprise. They're probably the least ready to attend until there's a vaccine or virtual only. Most ready, I'm ready, tell me when and where. Business, they're the most daring, although still only about 7%. Anyways, I'm just having fun now. Let me keep going. All right, so next steps, and then we'll break for some questions and any just kind of discussion. So I mentioned that we were going to share these results with all alumni in February. So stay tuned for that. We are analyzing the results. We're going to take a deep dive with our Board of Governors at our February board meeting. So I expect after that, we will have some additional direction, perhaps some new initiatives related to these survey results. And I just wanted to put a few recommendations or ideas here on how your alumni network can use this data in your engagement strategies. So these are my personal recommendations. Take them for a grain of salt. But this is just kind of, my view of the data and where I would recommend groups going. Enhance programs related to professional development and industry networking. Angela and I talk a lot about this, and for our regional networks, I know that game watches, trivia events, all of that, kind of the bread and butter of what we do, but maybe we want to reconsider that, and maybe the bread and butter is really career preparation or industry networking. And if you're based out of New York, that's the hub for finance. Maybe we need to think about having a series on finance and connecting alumni in financial positions. If you're out in LA, do what works best for your network, for your constituents, based on your region, based off of your network. But I really think that as a community of leaders here, which all of you are, any way we can enhance professional development, industry networking is going to be a win. You can help us promoting the new Terrapins Connect job board. We know that finding jobs, that was the #1 thing for everybody across every demographic. Because of that, we launched a new job board very recently. I think you've already heard about that. Please help us promote that. Share that out in your social media. Post jobs at your company. Ask alumni, talk about that at your events. If you're doing a professional networking event, work into your speaking remarks that we have a new job board and encourage alumni to check that out. Excuse me, 1 second. Another thing, we did this kind of post-COVID in like April, and a lot of the groups were very helpful. So thank you for everyone who participated. Help us identify locally owned TERP businesses and share that information about the TERP #TERP business campaign. We're going to have a lot of new programming coming out in the near future related to TERP-owned businesses, and we want to have as many of those TERP-owned businesses identified as possible. So help us with that. Also, make a special effort to ensure your events are diverse and inclusive. We know over and over again across all demographics, for the most part, that elevating underrepresented communities was something that our alumni find important. So make sure that your panels are diverse and inclusive. Make sure that your topics that you're doing reflect the diverse communities that we're serving. Host events related to social justice and how we can all be anti-racist and better colleagues and friends and peers. I think that those types of events would be welcomed by alumni, and alumni are showing that there is an interest there. Explore ways to share stories of your alumni. So I think that this is a great social media strategy. If you have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn for your group, I think don't just use that to invite alumni to your events. I think you should really use that to share articles from the blog or from Maryland Today, or if your school or college has groundbreaking research and something from your school or college magazine, use your social media to not just share events, but also share news. alumni, you might actually find that you have better engagement on your social media if you're sharing news and information and not just events. And then I encourage everyone to consider continuing to provide virtual programming even after we're able to return to in-person events. So from a staff perspective, we're definitely going to do that. And I also encourage you to consider, as our volunteer leaders, to think about this in the context of your programming as well. I talked a lot.
Thanks, Jeff. That was very informative and answered a bunch of questions that were in the chat. One question that I was hoping you might be able to speak to, we refer to the regional networks as an area of interest to engage. Does that mean that people are not interested in academic or affinity, or we just chose regional to encompass all networks?
Great question. We did not include academic or affinity, so that's perhaps something that we should think about for next year. That was not included, so we did not ask how alumni, if they want to engage with alumni who share their identity or who graduate from the same school. So we could add that to future surveys.
Okay, and then do you think that the cost of joining the Alumni Association impacts whether people join or not?
I'm sure it does impact it, but I believe that the value of the membership exceeds the cost. So if you think about all the things that we provide to alumni members, and I mean, I know we could always provide more, but now that we're in virtual programming, most of our events are free, but previously members would get free pricing at all of our in-person events. Which, average ticket price would be $10 to $25 for some of those events. So, we calculated out that somebody would really only need to attend 3 events, and they also would get their member swag that they would get, as joining, and membership pays for itself very quickly. So, I believe that the value justifies the price, but, I'm sure there are some people who maybe hesitate based on the price, but, we have to price it aligned with what I believe is the value, and what Amy and Jessica and the membership team believe is the value of membership.
Great. Well, that concludes all the questions in the chat. Okay, wait, there are some more.
I wish we were all in person. I miss doing these things in person, guys.
Okay. I think that's the majority of the questions for the group. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be happy to help answer those. So thank you, everyone. And this will be sent out to you later today.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.